Hey guys, this is Dave with Gazaudio. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Hidizs XO. We'll go over what's included in the box first. Of course, we have the XO itself. It also comes with a Type-C USB cable and a Type-A to Type-C USB adapter. Now, as for the price, design, and specifications, the XO is priced at $99 and is your basic portable USB DAC with the exception of the added RGB lighting. I believe the housing of the DAC is made out of aluminum. It is very light, but it also does feel robust and durable at the same time. As for the design, the approach they took with the addition of the RGB lighting is unique. I'm not a huge RGB guy, but again, at least it is something that's different. I think the implementation and ability to change the colors is pretty cool. I don't know of any other USB DACs that actually have that feature. As for inputs, outputs, and buttons, on the top of the XO, we have a 3.5 millimeter and a 2.5 millimeter output. I do wish they would have gone with a 4.4 instead. I just prefer 4.4 over 2.5. And on the bottom, we have a Type-C input. It does not have a volume rocker. However, it does have two buttons on the front, an X and an O. The round button, or O, allows you to switch between two different sound filters and also has a backlight sample rate indicator, and the X allows you to change your RGB color scheme. Inside of the XO, we have a pair of ES9219 DAC chips and independent crystal oscillators. Now, that is the same DAC chip that's used in the FIO BTR5 2021 and the Hidizs FC4 as well, and I will do comparisons towards the end. Now, as for power output of the XO, we have 78 milliwatts at 32 ohms out of the 3.5 and 195 milliwatts at 32 ohms out of the 2.5 output. So as far as audio formats, the XO can decode up to 32-bit PCM, DSD256, and it also supports MQA 16 times unfolding. Okay, let's talk about the sound of the XO. So one of the XO's features are some included filter options, again, that you can change by pressing the O button on the front. And I did test both filters, and what I found was that while the differences were subtle, they were noticeable. The blue filter had a somewhat more relaxed presentation, while the red had a little more of an energetic presentation in the upper end. And again, the differences were minimal, but I did end up choosing the blue just for testing purposes. And now, as for the overall sound of the XO, I would consider it to be mostly neutral. It does have just a tinge of warmth, but for the most part, it's pretty much uncolored. So instruments and vocals have a nice natural presentation, and as far as the overall presentation, I would say it leans towards the smoother, inoffensive direction as opposed to the analytical and energetic direction. I did also test for background noise using my 2020 Andromedas and my Dunus N Pros, and I heard no perceivable background noise at all. The XO's background is very, very quiet. But if we look a little closer, starting with the bass, what we see is a mostly neutral bass presentation. And again, while there is just a hint of warmth in the mid bass, it doesn't affect or diminish lower mid bass or mid clarity. It's just enough to add a nice amount of body and note weight to instruments and vocals. The bass is very tight and controlled, and it does have ample amounts of impact and slam. It also has adequate amounts of mid bass and lower mid texture. As for sub bass presence, the XO has great extension, so there's plenty of sub bass rumble, which kind of helps again to reinforce that low end and supports the rest of the bass frequencies. Now, as you move into the mids, things remain relatively neutral. Mid-range detail is very good. Instruments and vocals generally sound natural and have good decay, so notes don't sound cut off or lacking in macro dynamics. And that same neutral tonality carries through into the upper mids and treble as well. So like the mids and bass, the treble presentation is basically linear. Treble detail is very good, has good extension all the way up into the air region. And if you happen to be treble sensitive, the XO should work fine for you, as the general treble presentation is a little more relaxed and doesn't have any harshness or peakiness. As for cymbals and hi-hats, the strikes sound natural and have good energy, but never, again, they don't come across as peaky or harsh. As for technicalities, one of the benefits of having a neutral sound signature is that it can give the upper mids and treble a little extra space to breathe. And what that can do is open up the sound a little more. So what that means, and again, it all depends on the capabilities of your IEMs or headphones. But what that means is you're gonna have a nice, open, wide soundstage and better perceived treble detail. When it comes to imaging and instrument separation, I would say it's good, and I would say it's comparable to the FIO BTR5 2021. So instruments and vocals for the most part have good density and are anchored nicely within their space. So they don't sound like they're just floating around at all. Their positioning is nice and focused. So let's go ahead and do some comparisons. We'll start with the XO's older sibling, the S9 Pro. Now the S9 Pro does cost about $20 more than the XO. It comes at $119. Now it does give you a little more power output. It gives you 200 milliwatts of power output. It does have more of a neutral sound presentation and slightly, and I mean very slightly, better clarity. And it does have, again, slightly better technical performance overall. I also have the Hidizs FC4, because it does compete directly with the XO in terms of price and features. It has the same dual ES9219 DAC chips, and in terms of sound performance, I would say it's at least on par with the XO in my opinion. The FC4 also has a 4.4 output, not a 2.5 like the XO, and it gives you 340 milliwatts of power out of the 4.4 compared to the XO's 195 milliwatts. And the FC4 is less expensive. The FC4 also has a volume control and supports MQA as well. And the FC4 also has more power output than the S9 Pro. And lastly, we have the BTR5 2021, which, like the S9 Pro, also comes in at $119. So it does cost a little more than the XO, but the BTR5 2021 also uses the same dual ES9219 DAC chips as the XO and the FC4. However, it adds Bluetooth and a battery. So this is the only device of the four that functions as a USB and a Bluetooth DAC. And again, it has a built-in battery. You can also use it with the FIO Control app, which is a great app in my opinion. In terms of power, it gives you 240 milliwatts out of the 2.5. Again, I wish it did have a 4.4, but it has a 2.5 like the XO. The FC4 does still have more power at 340 milliwatts, but more importantly, the sound quality of the BTR5 is at least as good as the FC4 and XO. The S9 Pro might have a slight edge in terms of clarity and detail, but it's, again, by a very small margin. So just to summarize my experience with the Hidizs XO, I guess there are a couple of questions I should ask. First of all, where does the XO land in terms of overall value and performance relative to its competition? And do I recommend the XO? Well, if I'm basing the recommendation on value and performance, then yes, it's not a strong recommendation, but I do feel its performance is very good. And if you're a gamer and you like the RGB aesthetic, then this device is kind of unique in that way. Now, the reason it's not a strong recommendation is because the FC4 exists. The FC4 costs less, it sounds as good, it has a 4.4 output, has more power, and a volume control. And I will say also, if you can afford to spend the extra 20 bucks, then go for the BTR5 2021, because again, it sounds as good, adds a Bluetooth, a battery, and more power. But I guess the bottom line is I still do give the XO my recommendation, because while it may not be the best value on the table, it's still a good value. And again, it does have that unique RGB feature. So all in all, again, I do give the Hidizs XO a recommendation, and I do feel it's a good device for the $99 price. Okay, so that concludes my review of the Hidizs XO. If you are new to the channel and you like our videos, please take a minute and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to go a step further, you can also support us through our Patreon. I'll be sure and leave a link in the description. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this review. Please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.